Fan-created media has been a longtime staple of fandom participation. Even so far back as classical art in the form of pastiche, or impassioned fans adding their own stories to the lore of Sherlock Holmes. Through works like fan fiction, fan art, fan remixes, and fan arrangements, fans are able to celebrate their favorite media. Other examples include music videos, images or videos taken from their favorite media set to music they think suits the characters, or videos that pay homage to the series with poignant arrangements. Cosplay music videos, similar to fan-made music videos like anime music videos, AMVs, grew more in popularity with the wider use of YouTube and social media. Fans would perform in character over a soundtrack they felt matched their video's purpose. Some creative fans even take it a step further, acting out scenes from their favorite stories through animation and live-action recreations. These motion pictures would sometimes find other stories to tell or reimagine the characters, the world, or the narrative. There are some fan creations, though, that find life in new, original content and intellectual property. Then there are media that can be described as love letters, content that pay homage to popular titles while telling a new, original story. And creativity can lead to the production of content with a wide-reaching form of distribution: social media. One such series is Lyrical Rollerskater Magical Melody. Even the title evokes familiarity of other popular manga and anime series. Magical Melody is a live-action series that falls in the magical girl or mahou shoujo genre. It's reminiscent of tokusatsu, Japanese shows that rely heavily on practical special effects. Similar to the live-action 2003 Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon series, Magical Melody blends special effects and post-production with Power Rangers-esque action scenes. Lyrical Rollerskater Magical Melody was created by Miracle, known as Bunmira on Instagram and TikTok.
So I started Magical Melody January 2022. Started posting it on TikTok.
She roller skates, dances, cosplays, and showcases her daily fashion through her social media posts. And much of this is reflected through the lyrical roller skater she plays.
So it's really funny. When I first made the first 3 episodes of Magical Melody, I had an idea for a story. One of the things about me is that I have been kind of writing stories like this my entire life. Magical Melody, in many ways, is not new. She is the same character, honestly, that I've had since I was like 13. Her name just changed a little bit, you know what I mean? But she's looked the same. Her outfit has always been the same. And so when I made those first 3 episodes, it was just for fun. It was just to kind of be like, oh, a little magical girl just like transforms. And then it performed so well and so many people enjoyed it that I was like, oh my gosh, like, should I keep going with this? Because I can totally keep going. So the story was not, it was not fleshed out at that point. It's still, I tell people all the time too, like, I have the big beats of my story, but I still write. I'm still making everything, like the finer details as I go. Thankfully, from the help of my partner who plays Silencio, they kind of bring me back together because I see the big, like, I'll see the big picture and then they help me kind of really hone in on the finer details. So it's really a collaborative way in that too, because I'll be like, you know, I want this and this and this, and I know I want this to happen here. So then Bryce will just kind of like put in these little bits and I'm like, oh yes, that's perfect. And then I can call it back to what this was. So they help me out a lot.
Like any story, Magical Melody has a strong main character, Melody. Although she's learning how to harness her ability, authenticity lies within her characterization and characteristics. She's easily identifiable in both her daily civilian appearance and her magical girl transformation, a wonderful palette of pinks and pastels.
Melody's design has actually been pretty consistent since I was a kid. I would say the one difference is like her overcoat that she has, like her vest. That wasn't really so much in the design when I was growing up, but like I wish I had some of those older pictures. I could literally show you, like, I've been drawing this girl since I was probably like 13, 14 years old. But I never thought that that would be me. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think that I would be the person that would be portraying her, because I always wanted to draw it. But I don't feel confident enough as an artist to draw Magical Melody, which was why I did TikTok in the first place, so that I could get this story out without feeling so constrained by not being able to draw. And so it just naturally felt like it made sense that, like, since she's my character, I should like portray this character. And I figured that if she were me in real life, this is how I would dress. So literally all of her civilian clothes are just my clothes. They're just my clothes out of my closet. I will usually try and go with whatever scene we're going with. So like, for instance, when we did the most recent roller skating battle, I made sure to get my workout clothes, you know what I mean? And most of the scenes too, where like it's just like her looking comfy as my pajamas. I'm literally like, a real person would do this, right? Like, a real person would have to look like this, and I'm a real person, so let me just put that onto her. People ask me a lot where I get my clothes from, and it's so hard because, like, there are some things that I have that are brand, like, and by brand I mean just I wear a lot of J fashion, so I do have a lot of things that are that, but honestly, a majority of my stuff is thrifted. It's thrifted, old stuff that I've kept from when I was like younger, that I'm like, one day I'm gonna wear all pink.
As a character, Melody is a hero that embodies the relatability of some reluctance and confusion about these new, unexpected powers bestowed upon her. She is also a fiercely loyal and supportive friend. Those she meets eventually realize her genuine kindness. And this is reflected in her magic, how she can protect and heal those who are in need. The series title of Lyrical Rollerskater Magical Melody also lends itself not only to Melody's character and design, but the world and its characters. Despite being modern-day Earth, there are a myriad of magical elements we see not only in our titular hero, but in the friends and foes surrounding Melody. However, it's not just enchantments that impact this world. The real-world magic of music itself is a major component to Magical Melody's story.
That's, I feel like I would be lying if I said that I knew immediately that I wanted to do music, but at the same time, like, again, all the stories that I've used to write as a kid had a musical element. They all always did. So I think that subconsciously I wanted it to have music in it, because that's immediately where my brain went. But I will say, like, as I was really delving into her story, that wasn't my initial thing. I just think it was always kind of in the background. And then finally I was like, wait, this fits. This works. I remember, like, I was sitting when I was first really trying to, like, flesh out the story. Sailor Moon has planets. Tokyo Mew Mew has animals, like endangered animals specifically. Magic Knight Rayearth has these mecha that you don't find out until later that they're mecha, but they're mecha. So I'm like, what would Magical Melody be? And some different ideas at one point too were like, which is so funny to say now because I'm like, that it could have worked, but it would have been a stretch. Like cafe themed, like sweets, pastry themes and stuff like that. But like I said, I think music was always kind of just in the back of my head because I am a musician, I really loved music when I was a kid and then went and got my degree in it. And so now it's got to be a part of whatever I do, I guess. And that was like one of the main things for me too, is that I didn't want to do anything that I didn't have an understanding of, because I didn't want to make anything up, or if I was making something up, I wanted to make sure that it made sense, you know what I mean? And I know as a kid, that was one thing I really struggled with, is that I had these big ideas, but then didn't really know how to connect them, like, to something that made sense to me, like something that I understood. And so having music and also roller skating, which is connected to the music and everything. I know what both of those things are. I roller skate professionally now, and then I also have that background that it's very easy to interweave. And also my partner, their mother was my choir director, so they have a very extensive music background as well. So it's just a really cool way also for us to connect with each other, because I will say something and then they're like, oh wait, well, did you know, well, this musical term? And I'm like, wait, you're right, that would make sense, we could put that in there.
The antagonist represents the complete antithesis of Melody, which plays wonderfully into what seems to be a tale of star-crossed lovers between Melody and Silencio. The stark contrast in his design and demeanor follows the often beloved trope of grumpy pessimist who falls for the sunshine optimist.
So just like Melody, Silencio has always kind of existed. Silencio is very much inspired by Zagato from Magic Knight Raider. Oh my god, I was obsessed with him as a kid. That character is very much designed off of him. And it's kind of crazy, and I tell my partner this too. Again, these are images I wish I had still, but I used to draw this character who had a different name, who is now Silencio, and I swear that this character looked exactly like my partner, looked almost exactly like my partner. They have very similar struggles. They have very similar inner demons, which is really funny. And so then like writing this character out in the beginning, my partner looks at the script and is like, oh, so I'm playing this character. And there was one picture that I had that I was able to show them, and they were like, oh, wait, we do kind of resemble. And I was like, see? Like, isn't that crazy? I did that when I was like 13.
There are complex relationships aside from the main romance. Themes of betrayal are embedded from the start of the series. Melody's newfound relationship with Celeste is complicated as Celeste starts to remember more of her past. Celeste is also incredibly powerful, considering how she created actual life in the forms of Dulce and the Opus. She's a loyal ally, Melody's right hand. But there's a sense of danger looming.
So one of my things in Magical Girls that I always like, I wish I knew more, is like, I wish I knew more about the best friend. So Sailor Moon had Naru, Sakura had Tomoyo, and it's like they have these besties that I feel like are super capable, but like, I will say Tomoyo is different. She does help Sakura out a lot with her outfits and stuff like that. She's very intelligent, but I'm also kind of like, I feel like she would want to do more. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe this is all that, like doing the outfits is all she wants to do, and that's totally fine. But like, especially in like Naru's case, because she was so involved with that, and I'm just kind of like, I would have loved to know more. Like, was she really just sitting down and just like pondering where Sailor Moon was the entire time? Like, I don't think so. Like, I feel like she would have had some inklings. So I had originally made Celeste's character, just like you said, to be like an ally to Melody, but I wanted her to be more. I wanted her to have more of an impact. I wanted her to have more intricacy in the story, because like it definitely is possible to be best friends with people when you're doing two different things. But like when you have somebody like Sailor Moon who has a whole squad of like besties that are fighting behind her, and then you have another bestie who's kind of like doesn't understand what's going on, doesn't know like what your world looks like, there's a difference in connection there, you know? And I liked Naru personally. I thought she was a great friend. And so yeah, I wanted Celeste to be like that Naru who is super supportive, but also is gonna like keep it straight with Melody, and to be like, hey, I don't like this, but I'm still like here to support you. And you know, maybe I might also be doing my own thing to make sure that you are okay, you know, because sometimes friends do things for each other because they think it's the right thing to do. And you have these familiars, you have these weapons, you have all these things. Like, who made those? Where did Sailor Moon get that? You know, why does she keep upgrading to her different items? Who made those? And I'm like, you know, valid. Like, who did make those? Like, who's Luna? We know she's from the planet Meow, but like, who is she? So I definitely feel like Magical Melody tries to answer a lot of those questions. Yeah, I love Celeste. Celeste is one of my favorite characters. I think she's a cutie. She's played by my real life best friend, Brittany. And the whole time I was writing Celeste, when I first wrote her, I was immediately thinking about her. And it was so funny when I came up to her and I was telling her about my idea. She was just like, oh my God, this sounds so cool. You're going to make your own magical girl. Yes, like do it. And then I was like, and I want you to be in it. And she's like, you want me? And I'm like, who else am I going to have in this? Who else am I putting in this thing? And then she's like, you're right. Like, if your friends can't hype you up, you need different friends. Because like, I'm nothing but love and support, and I want my friends to succeed and to thrive. And I feel like I try my best to surround myself with people who have the same mindset, because it just makes things feel so much better. Like, I don't want any awkward feelings or, you know, people not fully supporting me, because at the end of the day, that takes me away from like my art. It takes me away from the thing that I really care about. So when I say that Brittany is a supporter, she is a supporter. Like, definitely helps behind the scenes. Like, if Bryce is the editor, she's like the on-set like organizer, always has like the extra things. Like, she's always prepared. She's very much my Tomoyo. So if I'm Sakura, she is Tomoyo.
Celeste herself seems unsure of the power she's brought into the world. The Opus Celeste created is its own cast of characters. Similar to the Cloud cards in Cardcaptor Sakura, the Opus are magical creatures that use their abilities to help Melody. The series finds the Opus transformed into fearsome antagonists.
So funny. So the Opus are a whole thing. When I first like was thinking about this story, and this was like before I was gonna put it on TikTok, back when I first was still thinking like maybe I can draw it. Like, there was even a portion where I was like, maybe I can animate it. Like, can my ADHD like get me to a point where I can learn how to animate so then I can animate my story? But the Opus originally, I don't know if you've ever played the game Shadow of the Colossus. I wanted to figure out a way to make the Opus like the Colossus. So I had no plans of like making them human forms or anything like that. And I would tell like my partner my idea, and they were like, Miracle, I see the vision. I don't know if that's gonna happen. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I understand. So I'm like, okay, what can I do at my scale that still comes off well and is very consistent? Because then there was also a point where I was thinking about making the Opus like costumes and really making them tokusatsu like inspired villains. You know what I mean? I was very much like thinking about Power Rangers, Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, the live action, which is also one of my biggest inspirations. And I'm like, that's kind of hard. You know what I mean? What could I do that maybe is even like a smaller scale than that? And one of my random hobbies that I picked up when I was younger was that I learned how to make plushies. And I was like, it brings it back almost to like Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon with little stuffed Luna. Like, I wonder if I can make this work and without it looking too cheesy. But honestly, like there's a line between cheesy and camp. Magical Melody hits camp pretty well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like it looks too cheesy. I think it looks pretty camp. So as soon as I made Dolce, which version 1 of Dolce is actually sitting up there. Dolce, the version that we know, is here. I immediately was like, okay, yeah, this is perfect. My thought of how would I have the Opus like battle, because I was like, I can't really like battle a stuffed animal, you know? Like, I mean, I could, but I don't know, like thinking about that felt a little bit more difficult. But thankfully, I have the coolest friends who literally at the drop of a hat, if I'm like, hey, I need you for this scene or whatever, they're like, you got me. Like they literally will just come. And so what I ended up doing with the human versions of the Opus, I reached out to my other close friends who I knew were interested. Or it's so funny too, because with the Opus, like when I made them, I had people in mind that I would put as that person. And so I just reached out to them and they were like, yeah, absolutely. We will definitely do this for you. And I'm like, thank you. So the Opus being people came later. There have been many times where I've wanted to rush through something, but I've been forced to wait because I've had other people involved. And then next thing I know, I've completely like changed what I originally had in mind. And it's like 10 times better. I love my Opus. They were a labor of love. I literally made them in 3 days, settled in. And I remember Bryce came upstairs and was like, Miracle, you did this in 3 days. This is crazy. And I'm like, I know. I think that they turned out pretty well. I'm proud of her. I also think Dolce just films beautifully. I love her. She makes me really happy. She doesn't have her little heart charm on right now because I'm fixing things. Every time, it's like I'll start filming with her and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, because usually to get her to talk, I'm the one that's kind of shaking her around to move her. And I'm like, I don't know. Then I start editing. I'm like, God, why do you look so good?
Something has changed the Opus from ally to enemy. The once mystical creatures are now humanoids who wreak havoc in the modern day. Melody must stop them from causing harm, and then heal them using her roller skating abilities, as well as her newfound powers. Although Silencio appears to be the big bad during these encounters, there's another mysterious figure, a shadow that has followed them from the past.
Originally, the reason why, Lydian, Calliope exists is because at the time I was debating on who I wanted as a romantic interest. I am a queer woman, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes seeing the heterosexual relationships in anime and manga was just so endearing and so sweet that part of me wanted to keep that. But at the same time, I'm also as a queer woman, it would be great to have a woman there as a character. So that is why her character exists in the beginning, was because I was like, who do I pick? I don't know, you know what I mean? But then she started to kind of evolve more outside of just being a love interest. I don't write villains well. I do not write villains well. That is legit one of my worst qualities. So this is where Bryce usually comes in. Bryce really helps me flesh out any of my characters who seem evil, who are evil, who have maybe a little bit more of a undercurrent beneath them, and then they help me to kind of get them together. So, but I knew from the very beginning, most people like a villain, you know what I mean? But I wanted her to be somebody that people didn't hate, you know what I mean? I didn't want anybody to hate her because I didn't feel like she deserved to be hated. I felt like there were a lot of situations that a lot of people could really resonate with her. And so it was genuinely my biggest thing, because I remember I was like, when we first had her, she was a lot different. And I was like, I don't know, man. I know people like people like this, but I don't want her like this. You know what I mean? I want there to be a reason as to why she acts the way she does. Because I feel like sometimes, in a lot of magical girl animes, they'll delve a little bit into the villain's backstory, but not much. And I say this like she's the villain, but we don't know that necessarily. But she's giving villain vibes, right? I just feel like the world is so much more nuanced. You know what I mean? There's so much more going on that you have no idea. People are having conversations with themselves or with other people that you have no idea. You don't know what their thought process is. And I really wanted to hone that in with her, because things are complicated, and just because, you have really complicated feelings on things doesn't necessarily mean that you're evil. You know what I mean? I feel like her motives are very valid, you know what I mean? I can definitely understand why she reacts the way that she does. And for some people that could come off as evil, or it can come off as conniving, you know what I mean? But for her, that's not necessarily the case. Another thing too is like, I didn't want people to assume that she was the villain either, you know what I mean? Because I like ambiguous stuff, because you never know what's going on behind the scenes, and to just assume that about a person because of the way they look, because of the way they talk, because of the way, you know, they may handle a certain thing, like that is just, I feel like, pretty short-sighted. Other things, like, they are made for a younger audience, and I think that a lot of times, like, as adults we tend to forget, like, oh, like, they want me to watch it, but this isn't for me. You know what I mean? Like, this is for kids. And that's fine. Like, that's totally fine to have media that you enjoy that is for kids. But because of that, a lot, just like you said, a lot of the nuance is lost because it has to be kind of like big swaths so that they can pick it up and understand. That is one thing that I've really enjoyed being able to do with Magical Melody, is just to explore a little bit more. I want to know more. Like, why are you acting this way? There's a reason.
We have hints of backstory, indications of what Melody's main goals are, and what conflicts she'll encounter. There's a scope to the web series that still maintains an indie feel, but with the planning and development that rivals what some may consider traditionally produced stories. As technology keeps evolving, it allows people to tell their own stories with minimal barriers to entry to a larger audience. Magical Melody uses props, costumes, and even camera movements to help build out the story world. The props and costumes are created with bespoke designs for each character. Celeste, Dolce, and the Opus share similar color schemes, with the base of white highlighted by unique colors depending on the character. Silencio and Lacrimosa wear mostly black, which complements Melody and her allies' bright costumes. It's no small feat to design and construct the props and costumes. To have unique designs that help build the world requires true devotion to the craft. Creative funding, or means of obtaining materials needed to create the props and costume, may be considered to keep the cost of fabrication reasonable.
So when it comes down to the costumes, it's a mix. I would say it's like 70% me and then 30% other people. And by other people, I mostly like Brittany. Some of the stuff, because like Brittany, when it came down to Celeste, I told her what I wanted. I had the vision. Next thing I know, she comes the next day and she's like, "Hey, I have this outfit. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is perfect. Like, this is this is exactly how I feel like Celeste should be. You did that. You know what I mean?" With Silencio, we had some pieces that worked out for their outfit, but then we ended up investing in some other pieces to really flesh out his character. Melody in particular, the dress, I've had this dress for years, and I knew, it was so funny when I bought that dress. I turned to Bryce and I was like, "Bryce, what does this look like?" And this is way before Magical Melody, way before any of that. I turned around and I was like, "What does this look like?" And then they were like, "It looks like your character that you always draw." And I'm like, yes! So I knew that this dress was going to be a part of it. And then I actually thrifted the vest on top and customized it and made it my own. So a lot of it comes from sourcing different things, changing them up. Some of my friends, like I said, they go out of their way to be like, "Hey, I've been thinking about XYZ character and I feel like this would work out really well." For the Opus, those were all their clothes. Like, I just feel like I also have really cool friends who dress really cool. So I tell them, like, "Hey, this is your character. This is what I'm looking for. Send me a photo." And then they'll send me photos and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly what I wanted." Very collaborative. If anything needs to be made with props. So I made the magical baton, made that randomly in 2020 before I had thought about a Magical Melody, anything like that. Made it in a night, and Bryce comes in at like 6 a.m. from the other room, because I'm sure they heard me like moving around, and they were like, did you just make a magical baton in the middle of the night?" And I'm like, "I sure did. Don't know why I made this, but I did." And then it sat there for 2 years until I figured out what I wanted to do with it. I usually say like it's almost like my subconscious wants something to happen, but the conscious me has no clue. Like she's just like along for the ride. As far as like Celeste shield, Brittany made that. She's definitely prop maker. I make a few props, like I said, the magical baton, and I've made the Opus, and I can do like sewing stuff like that. But she's definitely, the weapons maker. She did the sword. She's done the shield. I usually will draw my designs and stuff, and then I will give them to her, and then she figures it out. And I'm like, that's awesome. I love that.
There are tutorials and how-tos where costumers give step-by-step instructions not only on prop and costume construction, but also thrifty ways to approach costuming. In Magical Melody, the costumes and practical effects are enhanced through clever camera work and editing. Much like a comic or manga panel, Magical Melody takes advantage of the vertical format of a camera phone.
One of the things that I also had a habit of when I was younger, and I still do now, is that whenever I listen to music, I make music videos in my head. I have the shots in my head of what I want and try to direct my friends, my partner, whoever it is, into those directions. And thankfully they're great. In general, I already have the shots in my head. And it's really funny too that, you say that it kind of reminds you of like a comic or a graphic novel. Many people have said that, but that was not my goal. I was not thinking that, So it's funny that that's how it translates to everybody, given the fact that I did want to draw a magical melody. Like I've always wanted to draw a magical girl story and just never felt like I could. So it's funny that that's what everyone picks up from that.
This may be where limitations can come into play. It's often assumed that everyone has a functioning phone with a camera. Practically speaking, for those who don't have a camera phone, it's difficult to come across a free alternative, so cost certainly needs to be considered when planning to film a video or series. However, there are some opportunities at places like libraries or colleges and universities that loan out equipment, which may help with that barrier for filming for those who don't have a camera phone or a standalone dedicated camera.
It's funny because not many people, but I've had people ask me would you ever film on a larger camera? And I tried. There was one time that I wanted to try, but it's just so much effort. One of my favorite things is work smarter, not harder. And it just adds more effort into something that already works really well. I feel like the vertical format just fits perfectly with my camera and stuff like that. I can edit at any point. I can go literally I edit right from CapCut. Very, very easy. We'll be on vacation or something and I'll have all of the episodes filmed, and then editing is one of my favorite things. Because I don't think the video quality from my phone is bad, but it definitely is not as great as what it would be from a DSLR. I like it. I kind of like the slightly fuzzier kind of vibe, because I feel like it gives more to the era, you know what I mean? It's giving more of that 80s, 90s anime tokusatsu kind of vibe. So I like it. It's definitely a stylistic choice at this point now. I just like how it looks.
Before social media, many personal websites were siloed into specific art communities, blogs, forums, or the now extinct web ring. To try to create and share work on a wider scale was relegated to dedicated fans who would take the time to look up specific websites. From there, those fans would be able to spread the word to their own circles. We now have a new way to distribute creations, which can be pushed to several platforms with ease of sharing.
I always knew I wanted to put it on TikTok. Once I started fleshing it out and stuff like that, I knew that TikTok would be the platform, mainly because I felt like there was a community and a demographic there that would be interested. I honestly kept it off of Instagram for a while not because I was embarrassed, but I didn't there's more people that know me they knew what I was about, but I hadn't really like delved into that side of me by that point. And so I just didn't think that they would appreciate it as much as I thought that the TikTok community would. But then once I really like delved into my own magical girl, ideas and everything, then once I put it over there, they're like, oh, this makes sense. It's really cool too, because like people who maybe don't even know about magical girls or understand that world. One, I will say if I do say, do you know who Sailor Moon is? They're like, oh, I know who that is. I'm like, oh, okay, well, perfect. So you've got an idea, right? But even if they don't really even know any of that, I think just because, with us having our coordinated outfits, with the story, like with things being a little bit more, or at least, I try to make it very cohesive, that like they can't say anything but be like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like whatever you're doing, this is neat. This is not a production team. We're using my phone. We have a busted camera stand, phone stand that I use. I literally use only like a section of my wall, and then everywhere else, thankfully, I just asked them. I'm like, hey, so I have this thing that I'm doing. If I tag you, can I film here? And everybody has been like, yeah, sure. They have no clue what I'm making. Like I give them an idea, but they don't know. And then once they see it, then they're like, oh, wait, okay, this is cool. Like because I actively go out to local businesses and places that I frequent to try and get locations. Like I remember when I filmed the shop scene, so many people thought that was a set, and I'm like, no, that is a real place. That is my job. That was my job at the time. I don't work there now, but this is my job, and thankfully the owner of the place sees what I do, and she's just like, yeah, you can film here whenever. To this day, like, and I will reach out to her and be like, hey, I really want to film something in Magical Melody. Is it okay if I come? Because I did it in the middle of the night, and I'm like, can I come in the middle of the night and just like film? And she's like, yeah, do whatever you want. So it's very much like me walking around talking to people. I hope you don't mind. And thankfully people just trust us enough. It's very ragtag. We just piece it together, but I'm glad that it looks professional, because that's always been my goal. I'm like, I just want the quality to be good, because just like you said, like so many people now have visited the Pretty Parlor because of the video, like our videos, and so many places have visited my favorite boba place that I went to, which was Bobe, because of the videos. And so many people now want to come out and skate, and I'm like, that's so cool. Like I love that. I love that that's working out mutually for the both of us. And I think that also is why a lot of the local businesses and stuff are so willing to kind of work with me. Outside of Magical Melody, what I guess you could say is my day job is that I'm a performer. So I roller skate professionally, and then I do a lot of like different odd things, a lot of different character acting and stuff. So I know quite a few people in the entertainment like world here in Seattle. And now they have started watching Magical Melody, like some of the people that I know, and they're like, would you ever want to do a Magical Melody thing at XYZ? And I'm like, oh my God. But the fact that even like some of the local businesses and other performers that I know want to be a part of it makes me even more excited to keep expanding this,
Aside from distribution, there's also the medium of creating digital art. Visual effects used to be incredibly time-consuming and difficult for basic computers to handle. Now, incredible free and open-source software applications have become prevalent, breaking down the barrier to entry for learning how to create art. Professional-level software is now readily available for artists to learn, and with the widespread availability of free tutorials on social media, self-taught artists are able to thrive.
I generally have an idea of what I want it to look like. Like I said, one of my things, I daydream a lot. I guess it's just daydreaming if, you have music playing in the background and you make stories up. So I daydream a lot. I feel like I've seen a lot of like magical girl content, magical girl like stories, that I have an idea of what I want those effects to look like. What's great, like I said, I edit in CapCut. What's great is that they have such a huge library of things to choose from that is so easy. So a lot of the things that I'm already thinking of exist, and then whatever doesn't exist, it's funny. I'll be like, man, I really want this thing. Where can I find it? Next thing I know, Brittany has sent me a link to like these add-ons and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So it's so fun. She's always on the lookout. She actually, I don't know if you saw the episode where the most recent battle where Melody does her attack with the big star. That was all Brittany. Brittany showed me that, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is exactly what I was thinking of. Like, very much giving Sailor Moon when she does her final moves and stuff like that. And I was like, I need this. This is what I need. And then I just kind of figured out how to post it in there. It's, again, collaborative. I usually have an idea. I can get most of it, and then I'm like, there's just this one thing I need. And then one of my friends comes in and is like, I gotcha. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Absolutely. There have definitely been times I've had episodes where I'm like, there is an effect that I want here that doesn't exist. And I'm not posting this until I find out what I can put here. And there have been times that Brittany, like I said, she'll just be like, oh, I found this thing. Does this work? And I'm like, wait.
Whether it's nostalgia, wonder, celebration, or all of them, or something else, we can now experience art and creativity in so many different ways. We don't have to scroll endlessly through search engines to try to find new comics or hear new music. It may feel like an endless sea of content at times, but artists who have honed their craft can now distribute what they create on their own and be found by viewers through networking. To see how inspired creators can weave together art that sparks with an audience is nothing short of magical.
I feel like it's more that. Like, I put out a vibe. I definitely was not expecting people to care. Those first few episodes of Magical Melody, I literally just put out because I had a story in my head that I had to get out. Like, I just had this idea that I was like, I need to put it out. It doesn't matter who sees it. It doesn't matter like what it does. I want this to exist. And then to see so many people just like resonate so much with it, and I tell people this all the time, like, the comments keep me going. I love like reading the comments. I love like reading the theories and spoilers and like all this other stuff that people have in mind for what I'm doing. So just the interest that people have in Magical Melody, I was not expecting that. I definitely thought it was just going to be a cute little passion project that I did for me and a couple of my friends. And so to see that people consider her as a magical girl, they put her up there with Sailor Moon. Like, I've had people say like, she's my favorite magical girl. And I'm like, stop. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. I love that. Thank you so much, because that's so validating. I never expected that kind of reaction, and I live for it. It definitely just makes me want to give more to the people who love it so much. There are definitely some projects with Magical Melody that are coming up this year that I'm very, very excited about. I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm hoping for more live versions of Magical Melody, which would be super fun.
Very cool.
And I can't wait. Like, I keep thinking about it. I'm so ready to get started. But I think the one thing that I would love to leave for people is, and this is something that I even still work on and struggle with, is like, create stuff even if it's bad, you know, like, just put your stuff out there, make stuff because it makes you happy, connect to your art, because at the end of the day, that's going to make your heart more full. There are times where I want to write Magical Melody because I feel like it hurts. Like, I need to get it out. You know what I mean? And if you have something like that you just need to get out, it doesn't matter like who sees it, just put it out there, because you never know, it may connect with somebody in a way. And the next thing you know, you've made 115 episodes of a story that you didn't expect to get that far.
Lyrical Rollerskater Magical Melody brings back that grassroots feeling of a passionate artist using these new tools that were once nearly impossible for independent artists to utilize on their own. distribution platforms, recording devices, editing software, all of it. It's that feeling of a familiar but fresh take on a beloved genre coming from an indie artist reignites that spark of connection between storytellers and their audiences is something that flourishes and inspires when artists take the chance to share their creations. Thank you for watching this episode of Workshopping Stories Explorations. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. What's one of your favorite types of fan-made media? Let us know in the comments below. And also, going a little off script here, how did you feel about this new format that we came up with? It's our first time interviewing someone for one of our videos, and it was a lot of fun, and it also just was inspiring to maybe see if we can do this further in the future with other creators, people who are indie artists we're thinking of interviewing further for their stories that they're putting out there, and even some of the more non-traditional work, like in music perhaps. There's storytelling in so many different ways, and it just feels nice to highlight how if you have the passion and an idea, there are different ways that you can access putting out your creativity now and sharing it with the world. And we're looking forward to doing more projects that are related to that. For a passion project like this, it's inspiring to see other people doing what makes them happy too. And thanks again to Miracle for actually doing this. We had probably an hour and a half long conversation, and they were lovely and wonderful. And yeah, definitely sparked my creativity once again. So thank you.